I read my husband's journal and discovered he's been living a double life for 7 years. There are moments in life that split your existence into before and after, moments so powerful that everything you thought you knew becomes a lie and everything you believed becomes questionable. For me, that moment came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when I opened a leather-bound journal hidden in the back of my husband's closet. What I found inside didn't just break my heart, it shattered my entire reality. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this nightmare truly began. My name is Sarah, and I thought I had the perfect marriage. My husband, David, and I had been together for 10 years, married for 7. He was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. Attentive, successful, handsome, and incredibly devoted to our family. We had 2 beautiful children, a comfortable home in the suburbs, and what I believed was an unbreakable bond. David worked in pharmaceutical sales, which meant he traveled frequently. 2 or 3 times a month, he'd be gone for 3 to 4 days at a time, visiting hospitals and clinics across the region. I never questioned it. Why would I? He always came home with stories about difficult clients, boring hotel rooms, and how much he missed us. He'd bring the kids little gifts from each city he visited. He was the picture of a dedicated father and faithful husband. Or so I thought. The day everything changed started like any other. It was mid-October, and David had left that morning for what was supposed to be a 4-day trip to Seattle. The kids were at school, and I was doing laundry when I noticed that David had accidentally left his favorite blazer at home, the navy blue one he always wore to important presentations. I knew he'd be frustrated without it, so I decided to check if he had another suitable jacket I could maybe overnight to him. I went to his closet and started looking through his clothes. That's when I noticed something odd. At the very back of the top shelf, behind a stack of old sweaters, there was a leather box I'd never seen before. It was pushed so far back that you wouldn't notice it unless you were really searching. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled it down, my hands trembling slightly even though I had no reason to be nervous. Inside the box was a leather journal, the expensive kind with handmade paper and a clasp. There was also a cell phone I didn't recognize, a flip phone that looked like something from 10 years ago. And beneath that, a set of keys I'd never seen. My heart started beating faster. Something felt wrong, very wrong. I opened the journal, telling myself I was being ridiculous, that there would be a perfectly reasonable explanation. Maybe it was old memories before we met. Maybe it was a surprise he was planning. Maybe it was anything other than what my gut was screaming at me. The first entry was dated 7 years ago. Almost to the exact month of our wedding. Rachel asked me today when I'm going to leave Sarah, it read. I told her the same thing I always do, soon, but the truth is I don't know if I can. Sarah is pregnant now, and Rachel is getting impatient. I'm living 2 lives, and I'm terrified that both are going to collapse around me. But I can't choose. I love them both. My vision blurred. Rachel? Who was Rachel? And what did he mean he loved them both? My hands shaking, I flipped through more pages. Each entry was worse than the last. He wrote about Rachel like she was his wife, about their apartment in Portland, a city he supposedly visited for work every month, about dinners they cooked together, movies they watched, inside jokes they shared. He wrote about feeling guilty when he was with her and missed us, about feeling guilty when he was with us and missed her. But the absolute worst part came about 20 pages in. Took Emma to the park today, it read. She's getting so big, already 3 years old. She has Rachel's eyes but my smile. Sometimes I wish I could introduce her to Lily and Jake. They'd love having a little sister. But that's impossible. These 2 worlds can never meet. I dropped the journal like it had burned me. Emma! He had a child, another daughter, with another woman. And she was 3 years old, which meant she'd been born 4 years into our marriage. While I was home with our son Jake recovering from a difficult delivery, David had been in Portland celebrating the birth of another child. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I finished, I sat on the cold tile floor and cried harder than I ever cried in my life. My entire marriage was a lie. Every business trip, every late-night phone call he'd taken in another room, every time he said, "I love you," while walking out the door. How many times did he say those words to her the same day? After what felt like hours, I forced myself to stand up. I needed to know everything. I needed to see the full extent of his betrayal. So I went back to that journal, and I read every single page. The picture it painted was devastating. David had met Rachel 7 years ago at a medical conference. She was a nurse, and they'd hit it off immediately. What started as an affair quickly became something more. Within months, he'd rented an apartment in Portland and started splitting his time between two families. He'd restructured his entire sales territory to make sure he had legitimate reasons to be in Portland regularly. Rachel knew about me. She knew he was married. In the early entries, he wrote about how she'd given him an ultimatum, leave me or lose her. But then she got pregnant, and everything changed. She decided she'd rather have him part-time than not at all, so she became complicit in the lie. For 7 years, David had maintained 2 complete lives, 2 homes, 2 families, 2 women who believed he was theirs. He'd celebrated 2 Christmases every year, one with each family. He'd attended Emma's birth and first birthday parties. He had photos of her on that secret cell phone, smiling and calling him Daddy. The journal entries showed his mental state deteriorating over time. The guilt was eating him alive, but not enough to stop. He'd write about wanting to come clean, about the stress of maintaining the lies, about panic attacks and sleepless nights. But then he'd write about how much he loved both families, how he couldn't bear to destroy either life. He was a coward, a selfish, cruel coward who chose his own comfort over the truth. I found a photo tucked into the back of the journal. It showed David with Rachel and Emma at what looked like a beach. They looked happy, like a real family. Emma was adorable with curly brown hair and big eyes, wearing a pink swimsuit and holding a sandcastle bucket. Rachel was pretty, tall and athletic with kind features. She had her arm around David's waist, and he was smiling at the camera without a trace of guilt or shame. Looking at that photo, I felt something break inside me that I knew would never heal. It wasn't just the affair. It wasn't just the other child. It was the completeness of his betrayal, the premeditation of it, the systematic way he'd built an entire second existence. I spent the rest of that day in a daze, reading and rereading the journal, looking at the photos on the secret phone. There were dozens of them. Emma's first steps, Rachel's birthday dinner, the 3 of them at a zoo, Halloween costumes, Christmas mornings. 7 years of memories I knew nothing about. By the time the kids came home from school, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront David over the phone. I wasn't going to give him time to prepare lies or excuses. I was going to let him come home from his business trip and walk into an ambush. But I also needed proof, not just for myself, but for the divorce that was now inevitable. So I took photos of every page of the journal. I documented everything on that secret phone. I made copies of the keys. Then I did something that still makes me shake when I think about it. I used the address I'd found in the journal, and I looked up Rachel online. It took less than an hour to find her social media profiles. They were set to private, but her profile picture showed her with Emma, and her location was listed as Portland. I created a fake account and sent her a message. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely type. "Hi, Rachel," I wrote. "I know you don't know me, but we need to talk about David. My name is Sarah. I'm his wife." I hit send before I could change my mind. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I had to act normal around the kids, getting them ready for school, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, all while my world was crumbling around me. I barely ate, I didn't sleep, I just kept checking my phone, waiting for Rachel to respond. She finally did on the 3rd day, just hours before David was supposed to come home. "I don't understand," her message read. "David told me you two were divorced. He said it was finalized 2 years ago. He said you'd moved on with someone else and that you co-parent the kids but barely speak to each other." I actually laughed when I read that. A harsh, broken laugh that scared even me. He'd lied to her, too. Of course he had. He'd told her whatever story she needed to hear to make the situation acceptable, to make herself feel less like the other woman. I responded immediately. "We're not divorced. We're very much married. He was just here in our bed 3 days ago. He's currently on a business trip to Seattle, or at least that's what he told me. Is he with you?" The 3 dots showing she was typing appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. "Yes, he's here. He's in the shower right now. Sarah, I had no idea. He's been lying to me for 7 years? About everything?" We messaged back and forth for the next hour, piecing together the full scope of David's deception, the lies he'd told each of us about the other, the way he'd manipulated both our trust. Rachel was devastated. She'd believed they were building toward a future together, that once his kids were older, they'd go public with their relationship. She had no idea he'd never planned to leave me at all. We made a plan together. David was supposed to arrive home around 6 that evening. Rachel would confront him that afternoon and record the conversation. Then she'd send him home and I'd be waiting with my own evidence. At 4:30, my phone buzzed with a voice recording from Rachel. I sat in my car in the garage and listened to the whole thing. Her voice was shaking as she asked him point blank about our marriage. There was a long silence. Then David's voice, panicked and desperate, spinning new lies on top of old ones. When those didn't work, he broke down crying, begging her to understand, saying he loved her but he couldn't abandon his children. He never once said he loved me, not in that entire conversation. Rachel told him it was over, that she wouldn't be part of his lies anymore. She told him to leave and never contact her again. I could hear Emma crying in the background, asking why Daddy was leaving. My heart broke for that little girl who'd done nothing wrong but have a coward for a father. When David's car pulled into our driveway at 6:15, I was ready. The kids were at my mother's house. I'd told her I needed a date night with David, that we had important things to discuss. She'd happily taken them, not knowing she wouldn't be bringing them back home that night. David walked in with his suitcase and a bag of gifts for the kids like always. "Honey, I'm home," he called out, just like he had hundreds of times before, as if this was any normal homecoming. "In the kitchen," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. He walked in with a smile that died the moment he saw my face and the journal sitting on the table between us. "Sarah," he said, his face going pale. "What is that?" "I think you know exactly what it is, David. Have a seat. We need to talk." I wish I could say the confrontation brought me closure, that hearing him admit the truth helped somehow, but it didn't. He tried every tactic possible. Denial at first, even though the evidence was right there. Then anger, accusing me of invading his privacy. Then tears and apologies and explanations that explained nothing. He said he never meant for it to happen, that he'd fallen in love with Rachel but couldn't bear to hurt me and the kids, that he thought he could make everyone happy if he just tried hard enough, that the guilt had been destroying him but he didn't know how to stop. "You're not the victim here," I told him coldly. "You made a choice every single day for 7 years. Every time you lied to me, every time you got on a plane to see her, every time you held another woman's child and came home to hold ours, those were choices." He asked if we could go to counseling, if there was any way to save our marriage. The audacity of that question almost made me laugh again, as if this was something couples therapy could fix, as if trust could be rebuilt after being demolished so completely. I handed him divorce papers that my lawyer had prepared that afternoon. "Sign these. You have a daughter in Portland who just lost the only father she's ever known because you are a coward. You have 2 children here who are going to learn that their father is a liar. You've destroyed 3 innocent kids' lives because you were too selfish to be honest. The least you can do now is sign the papers and make this as easy as possible." He signed them. What choice did he have? That was 6 months ago. The divorce is almost finalized. David moved into an apartment downtown. He has the kids every other weekend, though they ask fewer and fewer questions about why mommy and daddy don't live together anymore. Kids are resilient, but I see the confusion in their eyes, the hurt. They don't know the full truth yet, and they won't until they're older. For now, I've told them that sometimes adults grow apart, that daddy and I both love them very much, and that this isn't their fault. I've heard through mutual friends that David tried to reconnect with Rachel, but she refused. She's apparently started therapy and is focused on Emma. I hope she finds peace. Despite everything, she was a victim in this too. We both were. As for me, I'm rebuilding. Some days are harder than others. I'll be doing something mundane like grocery shopping or watching TV, and suddenly I'll remember a moment from our marriage and wonder if he was thinking about her, if he was wishing he was somewhere else, if anything was ever real. I've started therapy too. My therapist says I'm experiencing a form of grief, mourning the marriage I thought I had. That makes sense, because the man I loved never really existed. The devoted husband, the faithful partner, the family man, that was all a character David played when he was with me. The real David was someone capable of sustaining lies for 7 years without cracking. Someone who could compartmentalize his life so completely that he never slipped up, never aroused suspicion. That's what haunts me the most, not just the betrayal, but how good he was at it, how easily the lies came to him, how I never suspected a thing. I've had to tell myself over and over that this wasn't my fault, that there was nothing I could have done differently, that his choices were his own. But late at night, when the kids are asleep and the house is quiet, I still wonder, were there signs I missed? Moments when the mask slipped that I was too trusting to notice? My friends and family have been incredible. They've rallied around me, offering support and righteous anger on my behalf. My mother watches the kids whenever I need time alone. My best friend comes over with wine and lets me cry or rage or sit in silence, whatever I need. My sister helped me redecorate the bedroom so it doesn't feel like a space David and I once shared. But there are moments when the anger fades and all I feel is profound sadness. Sadness for the years we lost, sadness for the future we'll never have, sadness for my children who will grow up in a broken home because their father couldn't be satisfied with the family he had. And sometimes, late at night, I feel sadness for Emma, a little girl I've never met, who was my children's half-sister, who lost her father because he finally got caught. She didn't ask for any of this. None of the children did. I've thought about reaching out to Rachel, maybe arranging for the kids to meet Emma someday. They're siblings, after all, and they might want to know each other. But I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe I never will be. Some bridges are too painful to build. People keep telling me that time heals all wounds, that I'll move on and find happiness again. Maybe they're right. I'm only 34. I have my whole life ahead of me. But right now, the idea of ever trusting someone again feels impossible. How do you open your heart to someone new when the person you trusted most in the world betrayed you so completely? David has tried to apologize several times since that night. Long text messages explaining his mental state, his regrets, his self-loathing. I don't respond. There's nothing he can say that would matter. No explanation can undo 7 years of lies. No explanation can justify what he did to our family. The hardest part is explaining things to the kids without destroying the image of their father. They love him, and despite everything, part of me doesn't want to poison that relationship. They're too young to understand adult complexities, too innocent to grasp the magnitude of his betrayal. So I smile and tell them Daddy loves them, and I hold my tongue about everything else. But someday, they'll be old enough to know the truth. Someday, they'll read this story or hear it from someone else, and they'll understand why their parents really split up. I dread that day. The day I have to watch their faces as they realize their father isn't who they thought he was. Looking back now, I can see how carefully David constructed his double life, how he used his job to create plausible excuses, how he probably chose Portland specifically because it was far enough away that our social circles would never overlap, how he trained himself to keep details straight, to never mix up stories or accidentally mention the wrong name. It must have been exhausting. That's one thing that came through clearly in his journal, the mental toll of maintaining such an elaborate deception. He wrote about panic attacks, about nights when he couldn't sleep, about the constant fear of being discovered. In some twisted way, I think part of him wanted to get caught, wanted someone else to end the charade so he wouldn't have to make the choice himself. Well, he got his wish. But instead of relief, he lost everything. Both families, the respect of everyone who knew him, his children's trust. And for what? Because he was too cowardly to either commit to his marriage or honest enough to end it? I've learned a lot about myself through this nightmare. I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive betrayal that once would have destroyed me, that I can put my children's needs above my own pain, that I can function and smile and parent even when my heart is shattered. I've also learned that trust, once broken this completely, may never fully heal, that some betrayals are too profound to forgive, that sometimes the only way forward is to accept that some questions will never have satisfying answers. Why did he do it? Why didn't he just leave if he was so unhappy? Why did he think he could maintain this forever? I'll never fully understand, and I've had to make peace with that ambiguity. If there's anything I want people to take away from my story, it's this. Pay attention to your instincts. If something feels off, investigate. Don't let trust become willful blindness. Ask questions, verify answers, protect yourself and your children. But also know that sometimes, even when you do everything right, people can still deceive you. Sometimes the person sleeping next to you is a stranger. Sometimes the life you think you're living is nothing but an elaborate performance. And if you find yourself where I was, sitting on a bathroom floor with your entire world crumbling around you, know that you will survive. It won't be easy. There will be days when getting out of bed feels impossible, days when the anger is so overwhelming you can barely breathe, days when you cry so hard you make yourself sick. But you will survive. You will rebuild. You will find strength you didn't know you had. And eventually, maybe not today or tomorrow or even next year, but eventually you'll be able to look back on this chapter of your life as something you survived, not something that destroyed you. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it, one day at a time, one step forward even when I want to stay in bed, one moment of choosing myself and my children over the pain. That rainy Tuesday when I opened David's journal changed my life forever. It revealed truths I never wanted to know and destroyed the future I'd envisioned. But it also freed me from a lie. And while the truth was devastating, living in that lie for one more day would have been worse. So here I am, 6 months later, still standing, still breathing, still moving forward. Not because I'm particularly brave or strong, but because I don't have any other choice. My children need me. I need me. And that has to be enough.